Hello guys, I'm Unstable Voltage and welcome to my EU4 tutorial on religion. Religion in EU4 is something that is often overlooked as a bit of a pointless minigame, and in some respects it is, because each of the different religions in the game works slightly differently. They have a slightly different mechanic, and a lot of the time it is overlooked. But what I've decided to do in this video is I want to talk about religion as a whole and the sort of global metagame with religion and what effects it has worldwide. And then secondly, in the last part of the video, I'm going to talk specifically about the papacy, the Catholic minigame. The reason that I'm just covering Catholicism and nothing else is simply because the game focuses mainly on Europe, and Catholicism covers the majority of the playable nations within the game at the start. And it is probably the most involved and in-depth religious minigame in the entire game. I'd love to be able to cover all of the different religions because they all do work slightly differently, but there are so many of them, and that is something that I will get to in the future. So the first thing we're going to do, just very quickly, is if we click on the religious map mode button, we're just here in the menu in the nation select. If we just go and click on the religious map mode button, shortcut key E, we can instantly see all of the religions that the game actually starts with. Now there are quite a few. As you can see, the majority of Europe is Catholic, and the reason I say that Catholic covers the majority of nations, because when you consider how many nations there are within the HRE, and they're all Catholic, that pretty much makes up the majority of playable nations. You've got Orthodox, which is another one of the Christian groups. Obviously, Catholic and Orthodox are both Christian. Then we have Sunni over here. There's also Animist. You tend to find a lot of the nations are Animist. We've also got Shia down here, which is also part of the Muslim religious group. More animist in South America. So most of the religions are color-coded by religious group. So for example, all of the Muslim religions are this green color. There might be slightly different shades of green depending on what type of Muslim religion they are. Same with the Christian religions. They're all a sort of a yellow, sort of a mustard color over here. We've also got the Hindu religions. We've got Tengri, we've got Confucian, so there's a lot of different religions here. Like I said, I'm not going to go through all of them, I'm just really going to concentrate on Catholicism. Now, just to show you how many different religions there are in here, and I can do this because I have El Dorado, if we just go into Custom Nation, and we'll just click randomly anywhere, it doesn't really matter, and if we go and have a look at the different religion types, and we click here, we can bring down all of these, so I'm going to do one at a time, but as you can see, we've got 3 religions here in Catholic, now in Christian. Now this doesn't even include all of the religions, because there are certain religions that you can't play as at the start of the game. So for example, if we look under the Christian group, we've got Catholic, Coptic and Orthodox. What we don't have here is Protestant and Reformed, because you don't get those until the Reformation happens, and that's something that I will talk about later on. We've got the Dharmic religion here, which at the start of the game is just Hindu, Eastern, Confucian, Mahayan, Shinto, Theravada, and Vajrayana. We've got the Jewish religion, we've got the Muslim religion, which at the start is just 3. We've got Ibadi, Shia, and Sunni. There are quite a few pagan religions: Animist, Inti, Mayan, Nahutal, Norse, Shamanist, Tengri, and Totemist. And then we've got the Zoroastrian religion down there at the bottom. So this isn't even the full list. Now it's important to actually look at these different groups, because there are 3 different types of religion in the game when dealing with other religions. You've got the true faith, which is your own religion. You've got heretic religions, which are religions in the same group. And then you've got heathens, which are different religious groups. So for example, the Catholics would consider the Orthodox to be heretics, because they're a different religion, but they're in the same religion group. They're all part of Christian. But the Catholics would consider the Sunni to be heathens, because they're in a different religious group. So that's an important distinction to make. Now, one thing you will notice on the religious map mode is that you see some provinces that actually have these crossed lines on them. The reason for that is it means a province is the wrong religion. So if we look here, for example, this country here is Bosnia. If we look at Bosnia, you can see on mouse over, we'll just select Bosnia actually, it tells us up here in the top right hand corner, Bosnia is Catholic, but there are 3 provinces here in Bosnia that are actually Orthodox. So they are the wrong religion. That's what happens when you see these different coloured lines. We're going to actually jump into the game as Bosnia, because the fact that they do have some provinces that are the wrong religion is really helpful for the remainder of the video. So let's quickly dive in as Bosnia and we can talk about the religion's effects on the game. So here we are as Bosnia, and just as you can in the main menu screen, you can hit E to go to, well, it's actually different here, it's T to the religious map mode here, and you can go into the religious map mode and you get the same screen that you had on the nation select. So we are playing as Bosnia. You can always find out what your religion is. If you right click on your nation, you can see over here next to your nation's flag, you can see what your religion is, and you can see we are Catholic. Our tolerance of the true faith is +1, and our tolerance of heretics is -1. You can also see what your neighbours are by right-clicking on their provinces to bring open their diplomacy panel. So we can see that Serbia is Orthodox, we can see that Hungary is Catholic. If we right-click down here on the Ottomans, we can see that the Ottomans are Sunni. And if we also open our production interface, sorry, not the production interface, if we go into our main tab, we can click on the religion panel, which is shortcut 9, and that again here tells us what our religion is as well. Of course, you can actually just see your religion color coded by going to the religious map mode. Another thing you can do is if you actually left click on an individual province, you will see that it says, I've clicked on one of my Catholic provinces and it says Catholic here in green. Shows that it's Catholic, the little icon next to it. If I mouse over, it says that in this particular province, the people of Donji Kraji are followers of the Catholic faith and considered true believers by the Catholic state religion. So that's saying that the state religion of Bosnia is Catholic. If I go ahead and left click on one of these other provinces, it actually shows Orthodox, but it shows Orthodox in red. And that's saying that the people of Travunia are followers of the Orthodox faith and considered heretics by the Catholic state religion of Bosnia. So that's what it comes back to, that being the wrong type of religion. So what are the effects that religion has on the whole over the whole game? Well, first of all, if you go to any other nation, you will see that you have a reputation bonus or penalty depending on your religion. So if we go over here and have a look at Hungary, you will see that we have a +25 bonus because we are the same religion. If we go ahead and look at Bosnia, you can see that we have a penalty because they are a different religion. Now, they are tolerated slightly because it says neighbouring tolerated heretics -20. So if you have someone with the same religion will have a bonus, someone with a different religion is most likely going to have a penalty. If they're your direct neighbours, you're more likely to get a bigger bonus or penalty than you are with someone far away. We click on Austria, for example, +25, same religion. Doesn't really make any difference for your neighbours with the same religion, but unfortunately, we don't have any neighbouring heathens. It's really difficult to start this game with neighbouring heathens, but as you can see there, Ragusa has the same religion, but we only get a +10 bonus with them, whereas Hungary have the same religion, and we get a +25 bonus with them. So you will get bonuses and penalties. Now, another thing to look at on the religious screen, and first of all, we're going to ignore everything below this golden line, because this box at the bottom, this is what will change depending on the religion that you're playing as. So ignore that for now, it doesn't make one little bit of difference. All we're interested in is this top part of the box here. So first of all, it tells you what your religion is, and if we mouse over, it tells us what our tolerance of the true faith is and our tolerance of heretics. Now, that's actually the bonuses that we are getting from that specific religion. So different religions get different bonuses. Those same bonuses are listed here at the top of this box on the right. So mousing over there, Catholicism gives me +1 tolerance of the true faith, -1 tolerance of heretics. It's exactly what it says here. This button in the top left hand corner, this is what is used to convert to different religions. Now, you can't always convert. It depends on what religion you are playing as. And also, certain religions can only convert at certain points of the game. Like the Catholics, for example, can only convert when something called the Reformation happens. But that's something that we will talk about when we talk about Catholicism. So we want to look at these three numbers here. These are the important things. We've got tolerance of the true faith, which is your own religion. So the base value for this is always +3. There is no maximum for this number. It can go higher and higher. There isn't really an awful lot of point. As you can see, we're getting the +1 bonus from up here because we are Catholic, and we also get +1 because we're at 100% legitimacy. Then we have our tolerance of heretics. Now, it's actually showing the Orthodox symbol there, but if we mouse over it, you can see that it does say that heretics are actually Orthodox and Coptic. Our tolerance of heretics is actually in the positive. With many nations, it tends to be in the negative. The base value for this is actually -2, and because we're Catholic, we get another -1 on top of that. Now, luckily, Bosnian traditions give us +3, and with our full legitimacy, it's actually taking us up to +1, so we are slightly tolerant of heretics. We're not in the negatives. And the heathen beliefs, as you can see, there's quite a big list there. We actually have -2. Now, the base value for tolerance of heathens is always -3, but our legitimacy is putting it up to just -2. The maximum you can have in tolerance of heretics and tolerance of heathens is +3. That's the most it goes up to. But tolerance of the true faith can go up as high as you want. So what effects does it have on the nation as a whole? Well, there's quite a list of things really that it can actually cover. So we're going to go ahead and we'll have a look at one of our provinces, and if we go down here and mouse over the unrest, now we are actually tolerant of heretics, so it's not that much of a problem, but as you can see there are two things showing here. First of all, tolerance under unrest, we actually have -1. Now that's actually good for us because we are tolerant of the heretic faith. If we weren't tolerant, if we had intolerance towards heretics, we would actually be gaining some local unrest here. So each point of negative tolerance actually gives you 1.25 local unrest. Also, each point of intolerance gives you a negative modifier on your tax of 10%, that's local tax, and each point of intolerance gives you -10% on your goods produced in a province as well. So actually having provinces that are the wrong faith, if they're not tolerated, can have an effect on your tax, your production, and your unrest. Now, it doesn't really affect the country we're playing here, because we are actually tolerant of the heretic faith. But one thing you will notice if we mouse over the unrest is it actually says religious unity. Our religious unity is giving us a +0.1 negative modifier to our unrest. If we actually go back to our religious screen, you will see that our religious unity here is 96%. So it says that from provinces it's 71.6%, and then Bosnian traditions gives us an extra 25%. And you can also see that having having less than 100% religious unity also gives you several issues within your nation as well. So for each percentage point of religious unity that you've lost, you gain 0.03 national unrest, a +1% stability modifier. You also lose 1% of your church power if you are playing as a Protestant nation, and you also lose 0.01 yearly devotion if you are playing as a theocracy. Now, if you have 100% religious unity, you will actually, for each positive point of religious unity, you will actually gain monthly fervour, which is a resource used by some of the religions. But the main thing you want to try and do is get your religious unity up to 100%. Now, obviously, there are various ideas and things like the Bosnian traditions that allow them to gain a little bit extra. If we go and look at the idea groups, and you can see under religious ideas, for example, religious ideas has one in there, tolerance of the true faith, missionary strength versus heretics. Maybe I'm looking at the wrong one. Is it humanist tolerance? There we go. Humanist ideas. The first idea in humanist ideas is tolerance, and it gives you an extra 25% religious unity. And then you get tolerance of heretics +3 as well. And you also get tolerance of heathens +3 right at the end. So there are different ways to create these numbers up. But basically, religious unity is the percentage of your nation that is the right religion. Now, we've got 3 provinces that are the wrong religion. Now, the way it used to work was it was just a flat percentage. So if you had 5 provinces and one of those provinces was the wrong religion, you'd have 80% religious unity because one province was the wrong one. Now it's actually based on the total production. So what you have to do is you have to look at the total production for your entire nation and then work out the total production for the provinces that are the wrong religion, and that will be the percentage of religious unity that you're losing, less of course all the extra stuff that you're getting that bumps it back up. Now, a province that is the wrong religion can actually still count towards your religious unity to a certain degree. It depends on your tolerance. If you have negative tolerance, then they don't count at all. If your tolerance is 0 or above, then you get sort of 25% of the effectiveness towards your religious unity. Tolerance of 1 or above would be 50%. Tolerance of 2 or above would be 75%. If you get your tolerance up to 3, then you get 100%, and even the province that is the wrong religion would still count towards religious unity. Now, whenever you have a province that is the wrong religion, you'll have this little icon appear up here that says you have provinces that you can convert to your religion. This is because all nations, or at least I believe all nations, start with at least 1 missionary. You can get more missionaries as time goes on through various events and decisions, idea groups and things like that. If we go ahead and click that button, it just takes us to the religion panel, and you can see we've got the 3 provinces here. It tells us the province name, it tells us the religion, tells us the time it would take to convert. If we mouse over these provinces, you can see why it's going to take so long. So there are various different things that change the strength of your missionaries. It is quite possible sometimes that you will just see 3 or 4 dashed lines, which means it is impossible to convert. Your missionaries aren't strong enough to counteract the negative modifiers. The stronger your missionaries are, the more quickly you can convert. It is possible sometimes to get a leader. You can get a theologian, who is one of the admin leaders, that can give you an extra 1% missionary strength. We don't have the option for him right there. You can also convert a province by clicking on the province directly and going and clicking on the little religion button here. And if we go ahead and do that and click it, it tells us how long it's going to take and how slowly it will go. The reason why. We click OK. And you can see that our little missionary appears down there, and he's now trying to convert the province. Now, one thing that does happen is when you are trying to convert, you will actually gain unrest because the active missionary gives you a sort of a negative boost to the unrest there. But you do want to try and convert as many provinces as you can and get them to the correct religion. So that's mainly the way that religion works. One thing to be aware of, though, is if you manage to get your tolerance of heretics up to 2 or above, then there is a chance that that some of your provinces might randomly switch over to a heretic religion. So tolerance of heretics can be good because it means if you've got heretic provinces, they don't give you such bad penalties. But if you manage to get your tolerance of heretics too high, there's a chance that some of your provinces might flip over. So now that we've actually talked about the way that religion works as a whole, let's talk about some of the specifics to do with Catholicism, with the papacy, because that is a little bit of a mini-game. It's the main mini-game for religion. So what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be looking at this bottom box here. And we're going to ignore this thing about cardinals for the moment. And the first thing we're going to talk about is this label here. This is the Defender of the Faith. Now, Defender of the Faith is available to all of the denominations of the Christian religion group and the Muslim religion group. So there can be a Defender of the Faith for the Catholics, they can be a Defender of the Faith for the Orthodox, there's one for the Protestants, one for the Reformed, there's one for the Sunni, there's one for the Shia. So all of the different Muslim religions and all of the different Christian religions can have one Defender of the Faith. Now, as you can see from mousing over here, it costs 500 gold to get Defender of the Faith, but it does give you some very nice bonuses for the price of a 5% increase in technology cost. But you gain an extra missionary, an extra 5% morale of armies and navies, you gain a reduction to your monthly war exhaustion, you gain +1 yearly prestige, and you gain +1 yearly papal influence. Papal influence is something that is very, very important. Now, the thing is with Defender of the Faith is what happens is if you are Defender of the Faith and a heathen religion declares war on someone in the same continent, you will automatically get called in. So let's say, for example, I had enough money to pick up Defender of the Faith. I would be Defender of the Catholic Faith. If the Ottomans, who are a Muslim group, attack Hungary, for example, because Hungary is Catholic, as Defender of the Faith, we would automatically get a call to arms for that war, because it's on the same continent, and a heathen religion is attacking the religion that we are the Defender of the Faith for. We can, just like any normal call to arms, decline it if we wish. If you decline a call to arms for Defender of the Faith, you lose Defender of the Faith, so you're basically kissing goodbye to your 500 gold. There are some limitations on Defender of the Faith. You can only take Defender of the Faith if you have a male ruler, not if you're a female ruler. And also you can't be in a papacy. Sorry, not a papacy, what am I on about? You can't be in a regency council. So you actually have to have an active male leader. Also, when your ruler dies, you lose Defender of the Faith. And after 2 years, somebody who has higher prestige than you can claim the title from you and take over as Defender of the Faith. So it's a handy little thing if you can afford it that'll give you some extra power. It's very, very useful if you are in a war, but bear in mind it is costly and it can lead to you getting called into wars that you don't want to. So that's the Defender of the Faith. And like I said, remember that you can have a Defender of the Faith for each of the different Christian religions and each of the different Muslim religions. Now what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at these numbers over here. The first thing we want to have a look at is this thing here. It says Reform Desire. Now this is something that is very specific to the Catholics. There is an event in history called the Catholic Reformation, which is where basically the Protestantism spawns from. And the Reform Desire starts off at 0%. But what will happen through the course of the game is all of the Catholic nations, or at least most of the Catholic nations, will get a series of events that happen. And depending on the options they choose for those events, it can actually give Catholicism some Reform Desire. Now, the Reform Desire is global. So I'm playing as Bosnia, and if Austria, for example, took an event that gave Catholicism 1% Reform Desire, then I would see that 1% here. So every single Catholic nation has the ability to bump this Reform Desire up. Once this Reform Desire gets up to 95%, then you get the option to convert to Protestant. And 15 years after the first Protestant nation appears, then you get the Reformed religion that appears as well, so you can convert to Reformed. Now, the first 3 nations to take the Protestant religion and the first 3 nations to take the Reformed religion get what is called a Centre of Reformation. Centre of Reformation is basically, it happens in a random province. So let's say, for example, that Bohemia up here are the first nation to become Protestant. They would get a Centre of Reformation randomly in one of their provinces, and that Centre of Reformation would slowly start to convert the neighbouring provinces over to Protestant. It doesn't just affect their own country, it can sort of eep over borders and start to affect neighbouring countries. You can still convert over to one of the other religions if all of the centres of Reformation have gone, but what you have to remember is when you do change religions, what usually happens is there are several ways to change religions. You can change religions via certain events that fire. You can change religions manually if you have the option available. You can also be forced to change religions if you are forced to as part of a peace deal. Now, what happens when you change religion normally is your state religion will change and your capital province will change to the new state religion, but all of your other provinces will be the wrong religion. So you'll have really low religious unity, which can start to fire a lot of negative events, especially depending on the nation you're playing. And what you'll have to do is work very, very quickly to try and convert as many of those provinces back to the correct faith as possible in order to keep your religious unity up. So basically what you want to do is keep your eye on this number. When it gets to 95%, you can then switch over to Protestant if you want to. But that number is affected by every single Catholic nation taking those events that can bring that up. Now, the other number that you'll notice here is the papal influence. Our current papal influence is 0.09. It's absolutely nothing at all. And it's telling us how much we gain per year. We only gain 0.56 papal influence per year. And that's because we have a base value of 0.5. And it says from controlled cardinals. But we don't have any cardinals. It says here we have no active cardinals. And it's also modified by 12.5% due to the papal state's opinion of us. So there is a pope, there is a papal state. The papal state is down here in Italy. Now, if ever the papal state gets wiped out, it will pop up somewhere else as another nation. The papal state always kind of exists in one form or another because the pope always technically has to be somewhere. So the papal state can actually move around the map, and sometimes you'll see if all this land gets wiped out, the papal state will pop up here somewhere in the HRE, but the pope is usually around, and having positive relations with the papal state is good. Now, if we go back to our religious screen, we can see here if we mouse over this, the Curia controller is currently the papal state. The papal state always starts off as the Curia controller. And there's a button below it that allows us to go to the papacy view. It's also the same button that's actually down here next to the mini-map. So let us go over to the papacy view. And just remember, we have no active cardinals currently. So here's the papacy view. And you can see everyone here who has active cardinals. So the Curia controller is the papal state. And then France have 3 active cardinals, Spain has 1, England has 1, Lithuania has 1, and Milan has 1. Papal state doesn't currently have any, but they have a 100% chance to become the next Curia controller. So what basically happens is, any of your provinces that are Catholic have a chance, providing they have, let's get rid of this for a moment, providing they have a base tax of at least 5. Now, we don't have any provinces that have 5 base tax. But if you have a province that has a base tax of at least 5, that province has a chance to spawn a cardinal for you. You can only have a maximum of 7 cardinals from a single nation, and you do get various events and things that will allow you to pay ducats and stuff to get extra cardinals. Now, basically what happens is, the more cardinals you have, the more papal influence you will gain. And what you can do, there's 2 things you can do with papal influence. First of all, you can spend it on any of these 8 things up here in the top right hand corner. Now, you might not have all of these depending on the type of government that you are playing as. So there are some, like theocracies for example, don't get one of these. I can't remember which one it is, but you might find that you don't have all of these available to you depending on the government type you're playing as. But basically, you can spend your papal influence on these various different perks and bonuses. So, for example, levy church tax costs 50 papal influence, and for 20 years it gives you a 15% national tax modifier. So it's simple as that. You pay 50 papal influence to gain 15% national tax for 20 years. You can gain 20 years of yearly legitimacy. You can forgive usury, which gives you 20 years of inflation reduction and reduced interest. You can spend 50 papal influence again and get 20 years of diplomatic reputation. You can spend 50 papal influence and get 20 years of yearly prestige. You can spend 100 straight up and buy stability. You can proclaim a holy war. Now, you can't do this. You have to be at war to do this. You have to be at peace with the papal state. And basically it gives you an extra 15% manpower recovery speed for 20 years. So providing you're at war, you can spend 50 papal influence to gain 15% manpower recovery speed. And certainly one of the most useful ones is this one here, where you can spend 100 papal influence and gain straight up mercantilism. So that's one of the things you can spend the papal influence on. The other thing you can spend it on, which is part of the minigame, is you can click this button here. It says spend 5 papal influence to gain 10 invested influence towards becoming the next papal controller. Now, you have to actually have at least 1 active cardinal to do this. We can't do it anyway because we don't have any papal influence. Now, each time you spend, it goes up exponentially. So the first spend is going to be 5, the next spend will be 10, the spend after that will be 15, then 20, and so on. And each time you spend papal influence, it will bring this invested number up. And the higher you get this number, the more chance you will have of becoming the next Curia controller. And what that means is when the current Pope dies, one of these active cardinals will be selected as the new Curia controller. Now, at the moment, if the current Pope dies, it'll be the Papal State that gets re-elected because they have a 100% chance. But once nations start investing papal influence into this, then they will all have a chance of becoming the Papal Controller. Now, becoming the Papal Controller has quite a lot of nice perks and benefits to it. One thing it does have that isn't listed on there is, first of all, the Curia Controller can break a royal marriage without it causing a stability hit, which is very, very nice. You get 10% reduction to your stability cost. You gain an extra diplomat. You get 1 yearly prestige. You get your advisors 20% cheaper. You get 2 more possible advisors. Now, what that means is when you go and look at your advisor list, instead of having 3 to choose from, you'll have 5 to choose from. So you'll gain an extra 2 possible advisors. You get a minus 5% reduction to the technology cost. You can have an additional leader without upkeep, such as a general or an admiral, for example. And you get minus 20% aggressive expansion impact. Now, there's also a couple of other options that you can see down there. You have the option to excommunicate, and you also have the option to call for a crusade. Now, basically, you can do an excommunication and a crusade only before 1650. After 1650, you can't do either of them. So, excommunication, for example, you can only do that with someone who is also Catholic. But the Papal States also has to have a negative opinion of the target. So, even if you're not playing as the Papal State, let's say, for example, we were playing as France and we became the Curia controller. Even though we can excommunicate someone, we can only excommunicate someone if the Papal State has a negative opinion of them. If the Papal State doesn't exist, then that rule doesn't apply anymore. And excommunication basically gives every other Catholic nation a CB against them, and it gives the excommunicated person a yearly prestige decay. So if you want to pick on other Catholic nations as a Curia controller, it can be very, very useful. It's a really good way to get CBs on them. And you can turn the whole of Europe against somebody, basically. Excommunication penalties. The nation that is excommunicated loses 2 yearly prestige. They get -3 tolerance of the true faith, so they don't even like their own religion. They lose 10 yearly papal influence. They get -50 relations with all the Catholic nations, and they get a -200% relation with all of the Catholic theocracies. So it really, really does hurt them. The other thing that you can do is call a crusade. So again, crusade, as I said, can only be called before 1650 against heathen targets, and the Papal State has to have an opinion of -50 of that target. Basically, any Catholic nation that borders the heathen province or the heathen nation will have a CB against them. And calling a crusade basically gives a number of bonuses to anyone fighting in the war against that particular nation. So you would get 30% national manpower increase, you would get 10% national tax modifier, 10% more morale on your armies, +1 yearly prestige, and +1 yearly papal influence. So if the papal controller, for example, declared a crusade against the Ottomans, anyone that wants to join in that war against the Ottomans, anyone that wants to join in that crusade, would receive all of those bonuses and benefits against them. So as you can see, the Holy See, the Catholic minigame, the Papacy, does have quite a lot of useful things in there, and it certainly is the most complicated of all of the different religions in the game. Just back to the religion screen quickly. As I said before, remember this top box here, this is the sort of main bit of information that affects everything sort of globally. Everything in this bottom box is specific to your particular religion. So there are various different ones around. I may do another video at some point just going through some of the other less complex religions, just briefly showing what they can do. The Reformed one is actually quite, not Reformed, sorry, the Protestant one is quite nice since the since Common Sense, because they've basically added a thing called Church Power, which gives you 3 different perks that you can pick and change around, and they're a little bit like idea groups, so they're actually very, very nice, very, very powerful. One of the ones that I quite like in this current version of the game. But hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight into the way religion works. I say the main thing that you want to make sure you keep your eye on with religion is make sure that you keep all of your provinces converted. You want to keep your religious unity as high as possible, because provinces that are the wrong religion can have additional unrest, and they can give you a reduction to your tax income and a reduction to the production income from those particular provinces if you are intolerant of them. And remember, you can get your tolerance up of heretic nations, or heretic religions, but you don't want to get your tolerance up beyond +2, because then you might find that some of your true faith provinces start flipping over to the heretic religion. That's not something you want. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. Hope you have found this video somewhat useful, and I'll see you next time. Until then, goodbye for now.